Dr. J. Varma was caught on camera, secretly recorded talking about how he hosted drug-fueled sex parties, went to underground raves, and had to, quote, be kind of sneaky about it because he was running the entire COVID response in the city.
The New York City COVID czar. This COVID's gotten out of control. Why don't we appoint a New York City COVID czar? Why don't we have a flu Rasputin? Why don't we have a Stalin for headaches? Why don't we usher in new tyrannies under the auspices of protection? The only thing that could make it more ridiculous if we were to later discover that the very people responsible for imposing controls on you, preventing you attending births and funerals, claiming that your children ought to take particular medications that in retrospect do not seem advisable, were themselves attending not only parties like the UK government were, both sides, baby, the ones that were in government then and the ones that are in government now, but in the case of New York City Governor J. Varma, actual sex parties. If you want to up the ante on a party, why not try a sex party? What's next? They were doing all this stuff with Diddy, that they were having COVID freak-offs. How much more are we to learn about our authorities? The Fauci freak-off. Let's get into this excellent piece of journalism by Rumble creator Stephen Crowder, which has exposed that Jay Varma, who was charged with your protection, was more interested in his own erection. You can have that for nothing. Let's have a look at this story. First of all, here's Greenwald talking about it. The number of Western elites who demanded and even forced ordinary people to lock themselves at home during COVID, while those same elites enjoyed mass pies, restaurants, hair salons, etc., etc., etc. Look at this. Amazing. J.K. Varma. J.K. Varma boasts about flouting the public health as he insisted others followed. Let's get into this. I mean, isn't this fantastic? I mean, I'm not taking any joy from it, except for I feel that I personally was attacked as a result of the way we reported on matters during COVID. That's what I feel. Let me know what you think in the comments in the chat. Let me know if you think there's a connection. We've had some extraordinary information from various government agencies in my country, various government agencies that seem to be particularly interested in de-amplification, shadow banning, surveillance and controlling information. We're going to be bringing you more information about that soon. It's very, very exciting. What's also exciting is to know that you can rely on your instincts a little bit. You can rely on your instincts, that you should not trust authority, that you cannot trust the media, that now might be the time to end all state-funded media. If you find that you're, for example, paying for the media through some covert tax, maybe that should end, maybe it should end immediately. If you find that there is a judiciary and a legal system that cannot be relied upon and trusted, then maybe this is the time for us to oppose it en masse. Let's have a look at these quaking institutions. Let's look at how they fall apart. Let's look at their decadence, their deceit and their treachery together, and let us awaken in unity that we may oppose them.
The city's COVID czar, former COVID czar, Dr. J. Varma, is not denying that he partied during the pandemic, but he says his shocking comments caught on hidden camera are taken out of context. Let's get right to Good Day's Briella Tomasetti. She is live at City Hall this morning with the latest. Briella, good morning.
You took my sex parties out of context. I was just trying to have a little COVID sex party, and person goes and takes it out of context.
Tashani, yeah, good morning to you. And if you're just catching up, Dr. J. Varma was caught on camera, secretly recorded talking about how he hosted drug-fueled sex parties, went to...
Now, there's no way I can have these sex parties unless they're fueled somehow. How about simple enthusiasm, a love of life, the spirit of Eros? I hear ya, but how about drugs?
Underground raves, and had to, quote, be kind of sneaky about it because he was running the entire COVID response in the city. Former Mayor de Blasio praised him for his handling of the pandemic.
Stay in your homes, put on a mask, stay 6 feet apart. Okay, come round my house. Get a little closer, not 6 feet apart. And it's going to be a very different kind of mess. There ain't no party like a COVID sex party.
Which included a highly controversial vaccine mandate that got some people fired and forced others to quit their jobs.
Were there not 34,000 key workers in New York City? Was there not outrage through the union movement? Did we not all quake in fear and horror as we were told that we were killing our grandparents, your grandparents, that we were being selfish, that we were being racist, that we were being MAGA? Meanwhile, Jay Varma He was having the absolute time of his life. Hey, Jay, you're aware that spores can get through those masks, ain't you? I hope spores can get through this mask.
Neither de Blasio, who appointed Varma, or the current mayor, Eric Adams, commented on the scandal, but this certainly isn't the last we'll be hearing about it.
Do you think you'd have gotten like a hard time if New York City found out that you were having sex parties during COVID?
Yeah, it would have been real embarrassing.
Yeah.
In a scathing video released by conservative podcaster Steven Crowder, Dr. Jay Varma, New York City's former COVID czar, boasts about throwing sex parties during the height of the pandemic. The clips posted to Crowder's YouTube channel seem to have been compiled from several different recordings where Varma is caught on camera speaking to a woman about hosting drug-fueled orgies with his wife.
Look at that. He's got a mask on his actual desk. He's got a mask on his desk during a time he's telling us we have to be safe. And what you have to now recognise is that entire period was a kind of spectacle, a piece of theatre. That doesn't mean that every single person involved knew that it was a centrally organised opportunity to impose authoritarianism and legitimise citizen management to a degree that would have been unthinkable prior to it. That doesn't mean that all of the pharmaceutical companies were communicating. It may not mean that there are nanotechnologies within some of those mRNA treatments. That does not necessarily mean that Event 201 was the blueprint for what took place. But it does now mean that we can say everything they told you then has to be interrogated and questioned. And everything we told you then, and that's as a result of a discourse and an ongoing dialogue between us. I'm looking at the comments right now. I'm looking at the chat right now. I'm receiving information continually. We are in a discourse. This is the biggest fear they have, the inability to control information. So when they maneuver their next scam or their next war or their next botched operation or their next crisis or their next smearing or their next takedown of an opponent of their narratives, people will be able to say, hang on, this person they're attacking, is this person for or against the establishment? This story that they're pushing, does this legitimize them having more authority and power? Will that authority and power translate into profit? Will it translate into people being further cuckolded, castrated, diminished and reduced? When the answer is yes, then you have to be at least circumspect, probably skeptical, even downright cynical. We can't continue to bring you this beautiful content without the support of our partners. The war against free speech is in full swing. We are the vanguard, bravely fighting back. Rumble's the home of this channel, Stay Free, and a leader in defending the fundamental human right of free speech. They've joined X to sue a cartel of advertisers and ad agencies who conspired to block ad revenue from going to the platforms. Recently, they've launched Rumble Premium. This, I think, is going to be a game changer for all of us. It's an ad-free viewing experience with great perks for viewers and creators. Rumble Premium will give you the ability to dive into your favorite content on your mobile or desktop or smart TV and savor every uninterrupted second of my content. Why don't you upgrade to Rumble Premium today? Support my free speech and the free speech of other content creators on this platform. Please go to Rumble now, rumble.com/premium. And if you use the code BRAND, you'll save $10 and Rumble will be aware that our stream is creating great converts. So that's rumble.com/premium and do use the code BRAND to save $10. Anyway, there's a link there at the bottom of the screen now. We're posting it in the chat. Join up. Do not trust the establishment, because the COVID czar of New York City was breaking his own rules to attend sex parties, presumably because on some level he either intuited or knew that he was under no risk by attending them. So what was going on when Gavin Newsom was getting paddleboarders arrested? What was going on when you couldn't attend funerals? What was that? Let's revisit it. Let's not succumb to the incessant cyclone and blizzard of information. Oh, that was way back in 2022. I can't think back that far. Wait a minute. That might be vital information. The same people are still in control. You can never trust them. You must oppose them. This is our time to begin fighting back.
And attending underground dance parties with more than 200 people.
It was fun. We all took Molly.
In a statement released to the New York Times, Varma said he was targeted by an operative for an extremist right-wing organization determined to malign public health officials and take down the public health system in America. He added, "I stand by my efforts to get New Yorkers vaccinated against COVID-19.
And I stand by my efforts to vaccinate other people using my very special syringe that's attached to my body and my very special medicine that I grow in my ball bags. Why? Why won't you people trust me? It's not that I've been a participant in a global lie. Why won't you let me vaccinate you? Let me vaccinate you. I've got the special medicine."
Varma didn't deny the recordings were real, but said they'd been spliced, diced, and taken out of context. He also admitted to attending 3 gatherings between August 2020 and June of 2021.
Everything that we do to prevent infections, keeping distance, wearing masks, washing our hands, we need to be even more rigorous about.
During that same exact time period, Varma regularly appeared on Fox 5, encouraging New Yorkers to mask up, stay home, and practice social distancing as public health officials sought to contain the deadly virus.
You can't keep calling it a deadly virus when people that were in charge of controlling its spread were so confident in their ability to withstand infection that they were attending sex parties at the height of it. I remember British footballers being condemned for not observing lockdown measures. Footballers, kids in their 20s, rich, working class kids living their best life. That's very irresponsible. Irresponsible. We've let the whole country down. Then you got medical professionals that are like, "Oh yeah, you guys better wear a mask." They are nominating targets for our ire and condemnation that are not worthy of that emotion, but there is no shortage of candidates that will be condemned. Lord alone knows forgiveness ultimately is the role that or the position that we must reach. Of course. But forgiveness does not mean ongoing foolishness, and we would be fools to trust them again, wouldn't we?
These new variants account for 51% of all cases that we have in the city right now.
He also sat next to former Mayor Bill de Blasio, who tapped him for the job during daily news briefings, updating New Yorkers about the city's progress in stopping the spread. Elected officials on both sides of the aisle are now speaking out. Joe Borelli, the city council's Republican minority leader, told The Times, "I recall being treated like a pariah for pointing out the obvious at that time, that many of our so-called leaders were just making up illogical rules as they went along. Still, I couldn't have predicted how full of it they actually were." Democratic City Councilman Robert Holden called on the current mayor, Eric Adams, to investigate, telling the paper in part, "It's alarming, especially with so many first responders, city workers, and everyday New Yorkers losing their jobs." After working for the city, Varma went on to become medical director at Weill Cornell Medical College's Center for Pandemic Prevention and Response. Now he is the executive vice president and chief medical officer at pharmaceutical company SIGA Technologies. No word yet on how this news may impact his current job. For now, we're live here outside City Hall. Dana Deshani, back to you.
All right, Briella, thank you.
What will happen is he'll lose his job, he'll be condemned, and people will consider that that's the matter closed. He's just an individual just trying to live life temporarily in a position of power because it suited the system to use him for a whole bunch of reasons, I'm sure. And now he is being cast aside because, like many people, he knew in his heart of hearts that the pandemic didn't warrant such strict lockdown measures, certainly didn't warrant the sacking of thousands of key workers, the persecution of thousands of members of the US military in particular, didn't warrant all the personal tragedies that each of us endured and for which we will never be compensated, because there will never be a full reckoning, because to have a full reckoning would expose this simple fact. There are unelected global powers, I'm not being opaque, I mean, for example, the WHO, that are able to exert power that seems sort of ridiculous, that receive their funding, again, I'm not being opaque, from groups like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who also invest in vaccine technology. And I hear your point that this was a From the beginning of the pandemic, many expert voices, to name but a few, Jay Bhattacharya, Robert Malone, Peter McCulloch, were saying something strange is going on right now. And then, because of the extraordinary abilities and reach of new media, someone like Joe Rogan could say, well, I got COVID and I just took ivermectin. I've not had any vaccines. And he was assaulted and attacked by what looked from the outside to be a concerted media takedown. Are you beginning to understand how this works? For I am beginning to understand how it works. This is not due to any epiphany, but only the slow education of reading this information. Let us not become hysterical. Let us not become condemnatory or hateful. Let us recognize that we can no longer trust these institutions. In fact, it's probably fair to say that the opposite of everything they tell us is closer to the truth than what they're saying. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and the chat? Remember to like and subscribe our content wherever you are watching it. And if you are still a YouTube viewer, remember to turn on the notifications and get on over to Rumble, and indeed consider purchasing Rumble Premium. It really helps our organization. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.